Let me drop this gem on your melon. Open your mind, let your conscience be free. You're now rolling with your man, LouieTeeNetwork. Let me open you up. Get you thinking a little bit. And I had a whole different gem dropping session lined up for you guys. We're going to talk about, and I just moved it. All I did was reverse course a bit. We're going to switch that to the end of the show in garbage time. And we're going to start the show with the big blockbuster trade. Sam Darnold traded from the New York Jets to the Carolina Panthers for 3 draft selections. The trade looks like this. 2021 6th round pick goes to the Jets from the Panthers. 2022 2nd round pick, 4th round pick goes to the Jets from the Panthers. So the Jets now own 2 1st round picks, 2 2nd round picks in the 2022 NFL draft. Meanwhile, they pick up an additional 6th rounder in this year's draft. So the Panthers give up 3 selections, a 6th this year, a 2nd and a 4th in next year's draft, and the Panthers get Sam Darnold. So that's the trade in essence. That's what we expected Sam Darnold to go for. At least me. I didn't know that you were going to additionally get a 6th and a 4th attached. I thought you might be able to get Sam straight up for a 2nd round pick. I thought that's what the going rate was going to be. But I told you guys this. He's not worth a 1st round pick. The Jets were trying to coax someone into giving up a 1st round pick. We were going to talk about them, and in case you missed it, and how, quote unquote, the Jets haven't aggressively tried to trade Sam Darnold. And I don't believe that for 1 second. I think they have been shopping him actively, and they just were waiting for the best possible price they could get. Everyone knows, it's no secret, the Jets are taking Zach Wilson number 2 overall. It's the worst kept secret in the league right now, okay? Everyone knows Trevor Lawrence is going number 1. That was a foregone conclusion 2 years ago. Well, whoever was in the driver's seat, 1st overall pick in the 2021 NFL draft when Lawrence first becomes eligible to get into the draft, that team is going to take Trevor Lawrence. That we knew that 2 years ago when he won the national championship as a rookie, as a freshman, I should say. The Jets tried to hold all their cards close to the vest, this offseason. Hey, we really want to evaluate all these quarterbacks. We're not looking to move Sam Darnold at this time because we want to evaluate the quarterback position and all of these prospects out here. Yada, yada, yada. We already knew, all right, what they were trying to do. They were trying to gas everybody up so that they could drive the price up for Sam. It's the same thing the 49ers are currently doing with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's going to be the same outcome, okay? Garoppolo's going to get traded. They're talking about we don't want to trade Garoppolo. We're not looking to move Jimmy Garoppolo. Yet, there's a separate rumor that says, hey, 49ers looking for a 1st round pick. It's the same thing the Jets were trying to do. Try to play cool. We've all done it with a female out there. If you a male, you've done it with a female. If you're a female, you've done it with a male. Well, you try to play cool, like, man, she feeling you, but you like, I ain't gonna sweat her though. You might get the number, but I ain't gonna call her the first day though, right? Like, we know what's going on here. We know what they're trying to do. They're trying to play it cool, like, yeah, I'm gonna let her sweat me a little bit. I know she feeling me. They're trying to push the price up. And now I'm really not pressed to move him for real. Like, I'm not trying to move Sam Darnold for real. I'm really not looking to move him. If somebody give me an offer that I can't refuse, though, I mean, I might be open to moving him. Come on, man. We already saw the writing on the wall. Sam Darnold was not a part of the Jets' future. And you don't be like Washington and miss an opportunity to move a commodity that is not going to be with your team long term. Washington missed an opportunity to get a 1st round pick for Kirk Cousins. Back when he was going through the whole franchise tag fiasco with Washington, they knew he wasn't coming back. They could have traded him to San Francisco a long time ago. Kyle Shanahan wanted him, would have gave up a 1st round pick. Instead, they wanted to be stubborn. They missed out on an opportunity and ended up getting a 3rd round compensatory pick. Don't do that. Don't be Washington, okay? Don't be stupid. Right hand like Zab Judah, okay? So they weren't going to be dumb. Neither are the 49ers. They understand what's going on here. They're going to get something. And this is a little bit different than the 49ers situation because Jimmy G has been signed to a long-term deal. There are still years and money owed to Jimmy G on that contract, whereas Sam Darnold's a rookie. They owe him peanuts, essentially, and he can walk away if they don't use the ability to take advantage of the 5th-year option and opt into that, then he would be a free agent after the upcoming season. They're going to opt in. And like I said, at the end of the day, they knew he wasn't a part of their long-term future. That's why they're at number 2. They're going to take a quarterback, and they had to find a willing trade partner. They tried to extract and squeeze all of the draft value they could get out of Sam Darnold, and this is the best they came up with. And this is not a bad haul. Okay, I'm pretty sure they would have liked to have gotten more now. Okay, a first round pick was what they were shooting for. That's what you do when you're negotiating. You don't set the price at what you actually want the price to be. You set the price high, and if somebody says, yeah, we'll meet that, you go, okay. I wasn't expecting somebody to bite the bait, but if you're going to give me a first round pick for Sam Darnold, I'll jump at that opportunity. But you set it at a 1 knowing that you want a 2. That's what the Jets did. They set the bar high and set the price at a first round pick. And somebody eventually is going to say, I'm not giving you a 1, but I'll give you a 2. And the Jets are like, oh, you're twisting my arm. Okay, give me the 2. Okay, you got me. That's what they wanted all along. They knew that they weren't going to be able to fish more than a 2nd round pick for Sam Darnold. And I actually think they made out like bandits, to be honest with you. Now, the 6th round pick this year, Carolina's like, I'll take the 6th round pick. I don't give a shit about the 6th round pick. You can have it. It's the 2nd and the 4th rounders next year that are of concern if you're a Panthers fan. Now, here's the thought process if you're a Panthers fan. 2 things that can make you feel a lot better about this deal come next year. 1, Sam Darnold ends up being the guy. I mean, let's face it. Now you've got the reuniting of Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Darnold. I bet you forgot about that 1 year Teddy spent in New York with the Jets. I bet you forgot about that. Reunited and it feels so good. Bet you forgot about that 1 year those 2 spent in New York when Teddy was the backup to Sam Darnold. Look, it's essentially this. If Sam goes to Carolina, and I don't see how he doesn't beat out Teddy Bridgewater, because they got to find out, and they got to find out now if Sam's the guy or not. So assuming that he goes in there, he stays healthy, which is something he struggled with the Jets, and he plays extremely well. He'll be surrounded by more weapons than he's ever seen in his NFL career. He'll have competent coaching for the first time since he's gotten into the league. There's a lot of things that Sam Darnold is going to benefit from being a Carolina Panther that he wasn't afforded in New York with the Jets. The biggest thing is stability from the head coaching position, because he had a head coach that was a clown show in Adam Gase. So now you upgrade that to a guy that I think is changing things in Matt Rule in Carolina and has that ship going in the right direction. I told you, it doesn't take Matt Rule very long to turn shit around wherever he goes. We've seen this happen at multiple stops. Wherever he goes, winning follows, and it usually doesn't take very long for that to take place. He did it in Temple. He did it at Baylor. He's going to do it with the Carolina Panthers, and we saw a team that had a lot of resolve and fight despite injuries and not having their best player be on the field for probably 80% of the games last year. They were in a lot of ball games and easily could have been an 8-8, 9-7 ball club if they would have been able to find ways to win games late. So this is a Panthers team that is talented. They got one of the best running backs in football in Christian McCaffrey. They got a nice little group of receivers. They're going to probably draft another one because they lost Curtis Samuel. Never, ever trust a man with 2 first names in free agency this year. But they still got Robbie Anderson. They still have DJ Moore. They're going to add another weapon, I believe, to that mix. And he's going to have more weaponry than he's ever seen in his NFL career. And he's going to have a great offensive coordinator in Joe Brady. And yes, I said great. He's going to be the next big thing, hot commodity as an offensive coordinator in this league, move to head coach. Just you wait and see. Next offseason, after Sam Darnold throws for 4,200 yards, 27 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and it is looking like the future franchise QB of the Carolina Panthers, everybody's going to be beating down Joe Brady's door to have him be their next head coach. That's how these things work in the NFL, and this guy's brilliant. He's already proven it at the collegiate level, and I thought he did wonders with the Panthers offense last year with Teddy Bridgewater and no Christian McCaffrey. So I think Sam Darnold is really going to benefit from a change of scenery, better coaching, and really better talent around him. Now, we're going to find out if Sam Darnold can actually play or not. I think a lot of people feel like he's got a ton of talent That's never really been the question for Sam Darnold. Is can you mitigate some of the turnover issues? He had turnovers at USC coming into the league, and he's had turnover issues and problems with the Jets. Now, a lot of people blame some of that on the talent around him, the coaching. And look, there are a lot of excuses. There are a lot of things that you can say as to reasons why Sam Darnold hasn't been as effective to this point of his career. Well, we're gonna remove all of those excuses now. He's gonna get a clean slate. He's gonna get an opportunity in Carolina to be the guy. Got to beat out Teddy Bridgewater, which I don't think is going to be very hard for him to do. And he's gonna have to go in there and show that he was worthy of a top 5 pick in the NFL draft, which the Jets made him the 3rd overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft. So if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, 2 things can make you feel good about this. 1, Sam Darnold proves to be the guy for you. You found your long-term solution at the quarterback. Remember, he's only 23 years old. It's not like you just traded for a 30-year-old quarterback here. You just traded for a guy that could potentially be your quarterback for the next 15 years. That's what you potentially have gotten here in Sam Darnold. So if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, you're crossing your fingers and hoping like hell that this guy comes in and wows you, floors you, and knocks you off of your feet and says, hey, we no longer have to look for a guy. We can now contend with Tampa Bay with Tom Brady at quarterback. We can now contend with Atlanta with Matt Ryan at quarterback and whomever the Saints are going to put under center. More likely than not, Jameis Winston at this point. But at the end of the day, if you find your guy, who cares about a 2nd round pick? Teams would kill to give up a 2nd round pick if they knew they were going to get their guy. You've got a chance to find that out. And secondly, if you're good this year, if Sam Darnold comes in and plays well, look, you played well with Teddy Bridgewater, Black Alex Smith at quarterback. Dun, 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 Captain Check Down Junior. And you still managed to be in ball games and win 6 games, I believe, 5 or 6 games. And you should have won 8 or 9. Without Christian McCaffrey for much of the year. So if Sam Darnold comes in, plays well, and let's say you go 9-8 this year. Let's say you go 10-7. Who knows? I don't know if there's that big of a spike and jump coming this year, but let's say for shits and giggles, 17-game season, you go 10-7, and that gets you a wild card, 7th seed in the NFC playoffs, which gets you the 21st, 22nd pick in the draft. You're like, cool, we gave up the 54th pick in the draft or whatever. You'll take that. You'll be like, okay, cool. Gave up a 6th rounder last year that we really didn't care about. The 54th pick, look, we all want our seconds, right? But if you found your quarterback of the future, who gives a shit about the 54th pick? It feels a lot less painful when it's 54 versus 34, okay? And take it from me as a Washington fan that gave up a future 2nd and then stunk the next year, and that turned out to be the 2nd pick in the 2nd round. Those sting, okay? So if he turns out to be good and the record reflects that, you feel like you've won this trade hands down. So it could be a win-win for both teams involved. Right now, it's leaning towards the Jets. The arrow on this trade is kind of pointing in the direction of the Jets. That needle is moving, though, but it's still pointing towards the Jets right now. But it easily could go all the way to the other side towards the Panthers if Sam Darnold turns out to be the guy for them in Carolina. So it's a big trade. We knew Darnold was going to be moved at some point. I never bought the hype. I continued to tell you guys, believe half of what you see, none of what you hear, even if it's spat by me, your man, Louie T. I've told you this a million times this time of the year, especially with these quarterbacks where there's smoke, there's fire, and there was plenty of smoke, man. Very smoky around those parts in East Rutherford, New Jersey, okay? Really smoky times out there. We knew Sam was going to get dealt. It was just a matter of when and to whom and for what. It wasn't a matter of if, just when, for what, and to who. And so now we can fill in all the blanks that we didn't know before. The to who is Carolina, for what? A 6th rounder this year, a 2nd and a 4th next year, and when? On April the 5th. So we were able to fill in all the gaps now. So another big quarterback domino has fallen. We've talked about all these dominoes this offseason and how we expected all of them to topple over. And we've seen most of them do exactly that. I mean, now you got the Stafford trade in the books. That was the first domino to fall. We've seen all of the movement of all the free agent quarterbacks: Andy Dalton to Chicago, Ryan Fitzpatrick to Washington, Tyrod Taylor to Houston. You got Jacoby Brissett to Miami. And we've seen all of these quarterbacks kind of shifting around. Look, I don't know if any of these are going to be real impactful moves or not, outside of the trades, of course. But we knew that these things were a realistic possibility. We've seen two big trades in the top 10 of the NFL draft. We know where these quarterbacks are going. We don't know who the 49ers are going to take at number 3. That's been a big source of discussion as that trade was made on March 26th. Now we've got this trade here, Carson Wentz trade from the Eagles to the Colts. That was another domino, the second big domino to fall at the quarterback position. And now we're getting the last of the big dominoes that we expected from a trade standpoint this offseason. Deshaun Watson isn't going anywhere. Russell Wilson isn't going anywhere. Aaron Rodgers isn't going anywhere. I never thought any of those quarterbacks were going anywhere. So these were the ones that we thought could happen. I thought Marcus Mariota might have changed teams this offseason, but the Raiders were smart. They kind of lowballed him and made him wait until there were no teams out there available. And so he had really no choice but to re-sign with the Raiders and restructure. So this was the last domino we were waiting to fall. And it fell. And I can tell you it's impacted the draft, because now the Panthers simply don't need a quarterback in the draft now. They've got their own experiment to conduct. They don't have to draft a guy in the top 10 anymore. They're not looking to come up. You know, there was this discussion about Atlanta at 4. That was the discussion we were going to have today. That Atlanta at 4 and Detroit at 7 are two hot spots in this draft because of the prospects of potentially having the ability to go up and get a quarterback. And those two teams could be some of the biggest beneficiaries of teams thirsty for quarterbacks. If San Francisco were to take Mac Jones, Atlanta would then turn into this major hotspot. Why? Because now all of a sudden Justin Fields, Trey Lance are on the board, and somebody's going to be thirsty enough to come up and get him. So you're hoping, if you're Atlanta, that Mac Jones is the pick at number 3, so that Trey Lance and Justin Fields are there. More likely than not, Justin Fields would be the guy someone would come up to get. And you could sit there and say, hey, I got a quarterback here. If somebody's trying to come and get him, come and get him. I'll take him myself if nobody else wants to, but come and get him. He's for sale. And Detroit, same thing, because the thought was, hey, got to get in front of Carolina. They're going to get a quarterback. If you don't get in front of Carolina, you ain't getting a quarterback. They're going to take the last one. And so Detroit was sitting there, Birdman hand rub, like, yeah, I got that last quarterback here, man. Last of the big 4. You know, I don't count Mac Jones in that discussion. I think the 49ers are making a big mistake if that's what they traded up to number 3 to get. We'll see. Time will tell on that or not. However, now this diminishes the value that Detroit's 7th pick has in terms of trade value. You know, and we were going to talk about that in the Gym Dropper session. We're going to talk about that now in garbage time later on in the show, so I won't get too much into that. But at the end of the day, this is a big trade because not only is it big for Carolina and Sam Darnold in a reset of his career and a chance for him to find a new home and finally settle in the NFL, and for the Jets, this is them essentially wiping the slate clean and setting the stage for them to draft Zach Wilson without him having to look over his shoulder and him being the guy in New York for the Jets, which we knew was going to take place. Jets tried to play us this entire offseason like we were dummies. We knew what was going on there, and it was only a matter of time before they moved on Darnold. It was was it going to be pre-draft, during the draft? One or the other. Was it going to be post-draft? It's either going to be pre-draft or during the draft. It ends up being pre-draft, and now this has ramifications on the draft. So there are a lot of trickle-down effects from this move by the Jets and Panthers. And it also, something else to take into consideration is now, because we thought that this could happen, say, if Carolina had gotten their hands on Deshaun Watson, and maybe he would have probably been a part of that deal more likely than not. If they would have traded for Deshaun Watson, Teddy Bridgewater would have given them a quarterback option that they could have went into 2021 feeling good about, just to get them by. And they probably would have still tried to draft someone with that 8th pick they would have gotten from Carolina, whatever the case may be. We talked about if Carolina were to get, and remember, they were after Matthew Stafford, very heavy were the Carolina Panthers. They were one of the teams very interested, and just like Washington, willing to give up a first-round pick this year to get their hands on Matthew Stafford. And so the thought process was, if the Panthers would have landed some big-name quarterback, that would have made Teddy Bridgewater expendable. If he wasn't a part of the deal to net them a quarterback, he would have been expendable at that point. So the thought process now is, where does Teddy Bridgewater fit into this? Is he now on the block? But at this point, you look around and you say, who needs Teddy Bridgewater? You know, who is looking for that option at this point? All these this game of musical chairs at the quarterback position, just about every team has snatched up a chair because nobody wanted to be caught without a chair. As a wise man once told me, all right, don't want to catch a brick. Don't want to catch a brick. Make sure you got an umbrella. Don't want to get rained on. Nobody wanted to get rained on and not have a quarterback. So I feel like everybody's made a move that put them in a position that they weren't going to be desperate. So I don't know if there's anybody out there that the Panthers re-signed Cam Newton, or excuse me, the Patriots re-signed Cam Newton. And I've talked about Ryan Fitzpatrick to Washington, Andy Dalton to Chicago, Jacoby Brissett to Miami. Like, even the backup roles have been filled for the most part. Like, I don't know if you can get anything for Teddy Bridgewater at this point. Maybe the Saints say, hey, we'd like to have Teddy back. But why would they do that? They're going to run with this Jameis Winston experiment and see where it takes them. They got Taysom Hill already. I don't know if they really want to give up anything in the form of draft capital to go back and go down the Teddy Bridgewater route again. And we're going to talk about the Saints and a potential quarterback fix for them later on in the show. But that's another interesting dilemma, but I just don't know if there's anybody out there at this point of the offseason that needs a Teddy Bridgewater. You know, we'll see. We talked about Alex Smith and him potentially ending up in Houston if the Deshaun Watson saga continues to play out and there's no end in sight. They may go to Alex Smith. It doesn't cost them anything from a draft perspective, though. It doesn't cost them any compensation to sign Alex Smith. It'll cost them compensation, which they don't really have to give up right now, to go get a Teddy Bridgewater, which is why I don't think anybody's going to be clamoring to give the Panthers anything for Teddy Bridgewater. That could be a domino, though, that we see fall later on in the season. Say a quarterback goes down before the start of the season, or a team is struggling at the quarterback position during the season, and they feel like they're in a position to win and win now. Maybe a Teddy Bridgewater gets you by. Let's say your quarterback is going to miss 6 games and you feel like you're a Super Bowl contending team. Maybe Teddy Bridgewater is a guy that could steady the ship for you for a 4 to 6 week period. It's tough, though, in season to go get a guy and expect him to come in right away and help you, because he doesn't know your system, and you're going to have to really minimize what you call and water down your offense significantly because he hasn't been there all offseason. But that's something else to take into consideration as well. Injury or two in camp could spur action on a deal to move on Teddy Bridgewater. But that's interesting. I think they're going to be stuck with Teddy Bridgewater when it's all said and done in Carolina and his salary.
Louie.